In the Sandstorm domain, the war fortress stretched across the Kiliakosm domain. Countless controllers had already returned to the war fortress one after another. The 7 supremacies devoured worlds, while the other controller supremacies could also take their share of the spoils. They could more or less obtain some benefits in the Kiliakosm domains and improve their strength rapidly. There were even some celestial devils that slipped through the net. They were all hunted down by a large number of controllers, and their celestial devils' true forms were completely destroyed. Without the celestial devil world, once those celestial devils that slipped through the net were killed, they would really be dead. The 6 Kiliakosm domains that originally belonged to the indefinite sect had almost completely switched ownership in just 100 years. They fell completely within the sphere of influence of the controllers, and there were no traces of celestial devils at all. From the looks of it, the 6 Kiliakosm domains all showed signs of prosperity. However, Supremacy Pagoda did not look happy at all. Instead, his expression was abnormally solemn. As the 7 supremacies returned to the war fortress, Supremacy Pagoda confessed, "Latest news in the Central War Zone, the Opulent Lodge suffered a crushing defeat. Supremacy Nebula and the other 4 one-star supremacies fell. Fortunately, other supremacies sent reinforcements in time, preventing the Central War Zone from suffering a complete defeat." Everyone's heart tensed. This news could be said to be a bolt from the blue. Although the 13 war zones fought independently, in reality, the 13 war zones were also related and had deep connections with each other. In particular, the Central War Zone was the most important and crucial. Once the Central War Zone collapsed, it would quickly affect the other 12 war zones. Moreover, it would have a huge impact on the entire war. After all, the Central War Zone could be said to be hoarding the strongest forces in the Opulent Lodge. Countless top-notch supremacies were all in the Central War Zone. However, even with such power, the Central War Zone had actually suffered a crushing defeat. Even Supremacy Nebula had fallen. This was hard for everyone to accept. Even Supremacy Nebula has fallen. How is this possible? Supremacy Nebula was a powerful supremacy who had once killed a celestial devil with a 100,000-layer true form. How could he have fallen? What kind of crushing defeat did the Central War Zone suffer? Even Supremacy Nebula fell. Including Lin Feng, everyone was very curious. Deep down, they were also a little worried. The collapse of the Central War Zone might cause the collapse of all 13 war zones, and the loss of this war. This was not what Lin Feng wanted to see. However, the fall of a supremacy with more than 100,000 worlds like Supremacy Nebula was indeed a huge blow to the morale of the Opulent Lodge. After all, although the Blue Domain Warzone had won, they had only defeated Emperor Venom and not killed him. This was not comparable to the fall of Supremacy Nebula in the Central War Zone. But everyone, don't worry. The Central War Zone has already been stabilized for the time being, and the 2 parties are in a stalemate. However, our Blue Domain Warzone probably won't have it easy. Huh? What do you mean, Supremacy Pagoda? Many supremacies looked at Supremacy Pagoda again. The Central War Zone had been stabilized. Why was the Blue Domain War Zone in danger instead? The Central War Zone has fallen into a stalemate. Neither side can do anything to the other. Hence, we can actually transfer some people to other war zones to reinforce them. Our Blue Domain War Zone has been in the limelight a few days ago. The defense line has advanced by so much, and we have defeated Supremacy Venom, one of the 9 elders of the Indefinite Sect. How can the Indefinite Sect really turn a blind eye? Therefore, Emperor Venom is making a comeback. Moreover, there are 2 more Celestial Devil Emperors this time. They are Emperor Bloodbath and Emperor Wasteland. A total of 7 Celestial Devil Emperors are advancing towards the Blue Domain Warzone. As soon as Supremacy Pagoda finished speaking, the expressions of the many supremacies changed slightly. Emperor Venom was nothing much, but Emperor Bloodbath and Emperor Wasteland were 2 of the 9 elders of the Indefinite Sect. Just Emperor Bloodbath alone had a total of 110,000 Celestial Devils true form, which was about the same as Emperor Venom at his peak. Even if he was stronger than Emperor Venom, it was by a limited extent. Emperor Wasteland was different. He was a powerful emperor ranked 3rd among the 9 elders of the Indefinite Sect. He had a total of 200,000 layers of celestial devil's true form, and his strength was formidable to the extreme. With the arrival of such terrifying celestial devil emperors, for a moment all the supremacies were panicking. They were really caught off guard. Supremacy Pagoda, the indefinite sect, is making an aggressive assault this time. How can our blue domain warzone resist them? If the indefinite sect can send reinforcements, why don't our blue domain warzone apply for reinforcements? That's right. We can also apply for reinforcements. The central warzone can also send experts to resist the elders of the indefinite sect, right? Emperor Wasteland was a powerful celestial devil emperor that even many supremacies feared. Even though they had defeated Emperor Venom before, many supremacies still did not have any confidence in facing an expert like Emperor Wasteland. Supremacy Pagoda heaved a long sigh and said, "How could I not have considered applying for reinforcements? After I received this news, I had already applied for reinforcements from the headquarters immediately. However, although the central warzone is in a stalemate, the indefinite sect actually has a slight advantage. They can transfer 2 elders over, but our opulent lodge can no longer transfer powerful supremacies over. Otherwise, the central warzone is very likely to repeat its previous fate and suffer another defeat." What? No reinforcements? Then how are we supposed to resist Emperor Wasteland? That's right. Without reinforcements, we're just waiting for death here. If that's the case, we will choose to leave. The supremacies all expressed their opinions one after another. They even all thought of leaving. The dividends of war were indeed very good. It could allow one to obtain a large number of worlds quickly in a very short period of time, and the speed at which their strength increased was also very fast. It could save billions of years of ascetic cultivation. However, no matter how many benefits there were, they could not compare to their own lives. Knowing that they were no match, staying here was tempting fate. The supremacies would not choose to tempt fate at all. Supremacy Pagoda also shook his head and said, "Actually, the headquarters intends for us to rely on the war fortress to defend the blue domain war zone to the death. It's fine even if we retreat from the sandstorm domain, but we can't let the blue domain war zone collapse." Supremacy Pagoda's tone was also filled with indignation. It was not easy for them to advance the war zone to the sandstorm domain. It was not easy for them to occupy 6 kiliocosm domains. The benefits were obvious to all. But now they had to give it up. How could he be willing? However, they had to accept the reality. Under such circumstances, they had no choice but to make a compromise. Otherwise, did they really intend to fight to the death with Emperor Wasteland? If we are just defending it to the death, it doesn't seem entirely hopeless. The war fortress of the Opulent Lodge is still quite strong. There's no knowing how long it'll take for Emperor Wasteland to break through the war fortress alone. Some supremacies also hesitated. If they left now, they could forget about participating in this war in the future. It would be a pity to miss such a good opportunity. If they were just defending the line to the death, it appeared that they might be able to hold out. However, once they chose to defend it to the death, even if it would not be breached, they would not obtain any more benefits. The war zone could not advance at all, and they would even have to spit out the 6 kiliocosm domains they had obtained. Actually, there's another way. Suddenly, Lin Feng, who had been silent and appeared very calm all along, spoke slowly. It attracted everyone's attention. Be it Emperor Venom, Emperor Bloodbath, or even Emperor Wasteland, if they dare to come, just kill them. Lin Feng's voice was very calm, but the meaning in his words stunned all the supremacies. They all looked over. In particular, Lin Feng's tone revealed a powerful confidence. Could it be that the Dark Domain Supremacy could defeat Emperor Venom? Supremacy Pagoda took a long look at Lin Feng, but still shook his head and sighed. Dark Domain Supremacy, Emperor Wasteland is not Emperor Venom. Although they are both one of the 9 elders, there is a huge difference in their strength. However, things were completely different this time. Emperor Wasteland would definitely be on guard against a sneak attack and would not act rashly. Moreover, Emperor Wasteland had brought a total of 6 emperors this time. In terms of the number of 1-star emperors, they were not inferior to the Blue Domain Warzone at all. Even if he could be trapped for an instant, the other supremacies would not have the chance to attack. Hence, defending the line to the death might be the best and only way. Lin Feng glanced at Supremacy Pagoda, but in the end, he shook his head and said, "It's just one Emperor Wasteland. It's fine. Leave him to me to deal with. Only after defeating Emperor Wasteland do we need to make other considerations carefully." Defeat Emperor Wasteland? Seeing that Lin Feng was so confident and did not seem to be joking, Supremacy Pagoda could not help but be surprised. Could Lin Feng really defeat Emperor Wasteland? But when he thought about it, it felt unbelievable. Even with their cooperation, it would probably be useless when it came to defeating Emperor Wasteland. However, since Lin Feng had said so, Supremacy Pagoda had to make plans. After defeating Emperor Wasteland, if we can also defeat Emperor Venom, we can charge straight into the iridescent domain. Although there are no powerful emperors presiding over this iridescent domain, there are many one-star celestial devil emperors. Moreover, it is the hinterland of the indefinite sect. Once we breach the iridescent domain, a dozen or so kiliocosm domains will be under our control. It will even have a huge impact on the entire situation of the war. The more Supremacy Pagoda thought about it, the more excited he became. He introduced the situation in the area of the indefinite sect in detail. The Sandstorm domain was only the first line of defense. Although the indefinite sect also had 13 war zones, most of the celestial devils were assigned to 13 war zones. There were actually not many celestial devil emperors guarding the remaining hinterland. The iridescent domain might be the last line of defense in the hinterland of the indefinite sect. Once they broke through this line of defense, they could charge through more than 10 kiliocosm domains, even dozens of them. In fact, they could even take a roundabout route to the back of the indefinite sect and cooperate with the other war zones to break the defense of the indefinite sect. That way, the impact would simply be tremendous. It could even establish the foundation of victory for this war. However, precisely for this reason, it was very difficult. Emperor Wasteland and Emperor Bloodbath of the indefinite sect were not so easy to deal with. If it were any other war zone, they would not be a force to reckon with. They'd be lucky if they could contend with them, let alone defeat them. Lin Feng did not say anything else. Instead, his expression was calm as he looked at Supremacy Pagoda quietly. After a long while, Supremacy Pagoda appeared to be a little tempted. Even though he found it somewhat unbelievable, he still had to ask. Hence, he asked in a low voice, "Dark Domain Supremacy, are you confident?" "If there's only Emperor Wasteland, I'm still 70 to 80% confident." Lin Feng was reserved in his claim, but having 70 to 80% confidence really made the Supremacy Pagoda's heart skip a beat. Last time, Lin Feng could barely manage to deal with Emperor Venom alone. He even needed the help of other supremacies to attack Emperor Venom together to defeat him. And now, Lin Feng could defeat Emperor Wasteland alone. No matter how one looked at it, it felt a little unrealistic. Pardon me for asking, but how many worlds are there in your internal kiliocosm domain? Dark Domain Supremacy? Supremacy Pagoda asked cautiously and softly. The number of internal worlds every controller had was an absolute secret, and could only be judged roughly. However, Lin Feng pondered for a moment before answering in a low voice. Not many, just 210,000 worlds. However, it should be more than enough to deal with Emperor Wasteland. What? 210,000 worlds? Supremacy Pagoda almost exclaimed in shock. Moreover, Lin Feng did not lower his voice at all. The surrounding 6 supremacies also heard Lin Feng's answer. Even Supremacy Yellow Sky's entire body shook. His expression was one of disbelief. Supremacy Yellow Sky and Supremacy Xuanji actually knew that Lin Feng must have some special method that used boundary stones to increase his strength, which was why he collected boundary stones on such a large scale. However, they did not expect his strength to increase so quickly. Previously, Lin Feng's internal kiliocosm domain only had over 70,000 worlds, which was even slightly inferior to Supremacy Pagoda. But now, in just 100 years, Lin Feng had actually already far surpassed the Supremacy Pagoda, and far surpassed any of the supremacies present. This speed of improvement could no longer be explained with being a genius or encountering an opportunity. For a moment, apart from reverence. There was also a trace of curiosity and envy in the expressions of all the supremacies when they looked at Lin Feng. How did Lin Feng improve from 70,000 worlds to 210,000 worlds in such a short period of time? Perhaps this was Lin Feng's secret. No one asked Lin Feng any more questions. They all understood that Lin Feng had secrets. Connecting it to how Lin Feng had only chosen to ask for boundary stones when distributing the benefits previously. At this moment, all 6 supremacies vaguely guessed that the reason Lin Feng improved so quickly was probably related to those large amounts of boundary stones. But so what? Lin Feng no longer cared about the guesses of the other supremacies. With 210,000 worlds and the rules of time, Lin Feng could already look down on most one-star supremacies. At the very least, there was no supremacy in the blue domain warzone that could make Lin Feng wary of them. He also knew that if he still wanted to continue to obtain huge benefits in the war, he would be exposed sooner or later. It was better to expose it sooner than later, and it was better to take the initiative to expose himself than for it to happen on its own. This way, Lin Feng would also have more confidence. All right, since dark domain supremacy is so confident, we will naturally cooperate with you with all we have. If you can really counter the aggressive assault Emperor Wasteland is launching on us, we can follow up on the victory and conquer the iridescent domain in one fell swoop. At that time, we will venture deep into the hinterland of the indefinite sect and completely reverse the disadvantageous state of the war. For a moment, huge chiliocosm domains seemed to appear in the minds of all the supremacies. That meant that they could obtain a massive number of worlds. For the sake of benefits, there were naturally supremacies who were willing to take the risk. Moreover, the dark domain supremacy Lin Feng also gave the 6 supremacies confidence. No matter how the situation developed in the future, and no matter how enraged the indefinite sect was, they only needed to defeat Emperor Wasteland and conquer the iridescent domain. Then they would naturally obtain huge benefits. Even if there was a little risk, it was worth it. Hence, everyone began to make preparations. They adjusted to their optimal state and deployed their troops. They were making the final preparations to conquer the iridescent domain in the future. We're almost at the sandstorm domain. Emperor Venom followed Emperor Bloodbath and Emperor Wasteland to the sandstorm domain. He was not punished after returning to the indefinite sect this time, because this was a time of need. The great sect master had also allowed him to atone for his crimes by making contributions. However, Emperor Venom had temporarily been removed from the position of the 9 elders. In other words, there were only 8 elders in the indefinite sect at the moment. Emperor Venom was only an ordinary 1-star celestial devil emperor now, and his status could not be compared to before. All of this was caused by that dark domain supremacy in the blue domain warzone. Now, Emperor Venom had already investigated things thoroughly. The one who restrained him and made him suffer a huge loss was the dark domain supremacy, an unknown 1-star supremacy. However, it was this unknown 1-star supremacy who had made him suffer. Now, he had become a joke in the eyes of many 1-star celestial devil emperors. Even in front of Emperor Wasteland, Emperor Venom no longer had his former confidence, and appeared very humble. Emperor Venom, is this dark domain supremacy really that miraculous? Suddenly, Emperor Wasteland asked Emperor Venom. Even though Emperor Venom had already reported it previously, now that they were approaching the sandstorm domain day by day, they were destined to face that mysterious dark domain supremacy. Emperor Wasteland naturally had to understand him better. Even if he was a powerful celestial devil emperor, he had to know himself and his enemy to be victorious in every battle. Emperor Venom's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly replied, Emperor Wasteland, you can't underestimate that dark domain supremacy. His special type of rules are too strange. It can completely confine me in an instant, and even my thoughts were confined. I can't mobilize any power at all, and can only rely on my celestial devil's true form to resist attacks head-on. If not for that, how could I have lost so badly? At this thought, there was a trace of resentment in Emperor Venom's tone. He could confine you for half a breath's time. Even your thoughts were confined, and you couldn't mobilize any power. But back then, he only had 70,000 worlds and was much weaker than you, Interesting. Looks like this dark domain supremacy is not simple. This person has a huge secret. A sharp glint flashed across Emperor Wasteland's eyes. He knew very well how difficult it was to completely imprison an emperor with 100,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. Even if he was far stronger than Emperor Venom, he could not confine Emperor Venom. However, an unknown one-star supremacy like the dark domain supremacy could confine Emperor Venom. This was very unusual. However, so what if he has a huge secret? He's still too weak now. Merely 70,000 worlds. No matter how big his secret is, no matter how bizarre his ability, it's useless. There's no need to make any preparations. We'll just suppress him with power in one go, and crush him fair and square. Emperor Venom was slightly stunned. He had thought that Emperor Wasteland was going to use some strategy or method, and did not expect his solution to be direct suppression by force. How could such a crude method work? However, on second thought, why would there be any need for schemes to deal with an opponent who had yet to mature like the dark domain supremacy? Crushing him by force was the right path. No matter what tricks he used, they were all useless before absolute power. Ha ha ha, Emperor Wasteland is wise. That's right. Not only are we going to crush dark domain supremacy this time and obtain his secrets, we'll also destroy the blue domain warzone and avenge our previous humiliation. Emperor Venom felt his heart lighten as well. He could not help but throw his head back and laugh aloud. We're here. The sandstorm domain is ahead. Suddenly, Emperor Wasteland's eyes narrowed slightly. He had already seen the sandstorm domain. They're here. They're here. Supremacy Pagoda's expression was solemn, and even his voice was trembling. He could not help but tremble. Those were Emperor Wasteland and Emperor Bloodbath. These two emperors, especially Emperor Wasteland, were famed. They were ranked in the top 3 among the former 9 elders of the Indefinite Sect. When such powerful entities descended in the blue domain warzone, the entire warzone stayed on guard. However, Supremacy Pagoda would not be in danger because this time, apart from Lin Feng, all the other supremacies were staying in the war fortress. This was double insurance. Even if Lin Feng lost, with the war fortress around, they could retreat with composure. At least the blue domain warzone would not collapse. However, Lin Feng alone had to deal with the 7 celestial devil emperors, including Emperor Wasteland. Could Lin Feng deal with them? Not only was Supremacy Pagoda doubtful, the other supremacies were also doubtful and even worried. Supremacy Yellow Sky and Supremacy Xuanji were the most nervous. Dark Domain Supremacy, you must defeat Emperor Wasteland. Even if you can't defeat him, you must stay alive. Your life is the most important thing. At worst, you can make a comeback in the future. Supremacy Yellow Sky was very concerned about Lin Feng now, even more so than himself. He knew very well that only by following Lin Feng could he obtain all kinds of huge benefits continuously. He even had a bold idea that after this war ended, he would completely integrate the Yellow Sky Alliance into the Domain Alliance and tie it completely to Lin Feng. Hence, he was very concerned about Lin Feng. Lin Feng's safety even represented the height that he could reach in the future. It was the same for Supremacy Xuanji. The two of them might be the ones who least wanted Lin Feng to fail in the blue domain warzone. If Lin Feng was defeated, he had to preserve his life, even if the blue domain warzone collapsed. Lin Feng was the only person they valued. If not for Lin Feng's repeated persuasions, the two of them would not have stayed in the war fortress with Supremacy Pagoda no matter what. No matter what, they had to stand by Lin Feng's side and help him to shoulder some pressure. However, neither Supremacy Yellow Sky nor Supremacy Pagoda knew what Lin Feng was thinking. In reality, Lin Feng felt no pressure deep down at all. Not only did he not feel any pressure, he even felt a trace of excitement. Emperor Wasteland, Emperor Bloodbath, and even the other 5 emperors were all one-star emperors. In Lin Feng's eyes, these emperors all represented large amounts of world origin, and could allow his strength to improve rapidly. The last time, Lin Feng had missed Emperor Venom. He could defeat him, but he could not destroy the Celestial Devil's true form of Emperor Venom, let alone transfer it into his internal Kiliacosm domain and convert it into world origin. But things were different now. Not only did he want to defeat these celestial devil emperors, he also wanted to slay them. This time, he would not miss these celestial devil emperors again. Hence, Lin Feng stood quietly in the Kiliacosm domain corridor outside the sandstorm domain with his hands behind his back. He did not move at all and appeared very calm and quiet. Swoosh! Finally, Emperor Wasteland and the others arrived. However, the moment they saw Lin Feng, everyone stopped. Emperor Venom could not help but say, "It's him! It's him! It's him! Dark domain supremacy!" Emperor Venom hated Lin Feng to the bone. But at the same time, he felt a hint of fear. Swoosh! Lin Feng opened his eyes. His gaze swept across the area, but finally landed on Emperor Wasteland. Even though he had never seen Emperor Wasteland before, he could recognize him at a glance. After all, that aura was simply too powerful. It was the strongest individual Lin Feng had ever met in his life. Emperor Wasteland, "I've been waiting for you for a long time." Lin Feng placed his hands behind his back and lifted his head. His gaze was calm, as if he was looking down on Emperor Wasteland and the other 7 emperors. "Huh? Just you?" Emperor Wasteland was a little surprised. He was prepared to crush Lin Feng and the Blue Domain Warzone with absolute strength. All schemes and methods would be useless. But now, Lin Feng was the only one who came. There was no sign of even Supremacy Pagoda and the others. This made Emperor Wasteland suspicious instead. Could there really be some sort of scheme? However, what was the use of schemes in the face of absolute power? Even if Supremacy Pagoda and the others were lying in ambush around, it was useless. "You came here alone to court your death?" Supremacy Wasteland's gaze turned sharp all of a sudden. He was an extremely decisive celestial devil. Once he made up his mind, he would not change it. "I alone am enough to deal with you," Lin Feng said indifferently, as if he did not care about the 7 emperors in front of him at all. How arrogant! If not for the help of Supremacy Pagoda and the others last time, would I have been defeated by you? Only 100 years have passed now. How much could you have improved? Emperor Wasteland, you don't have to attack. The 5 of us can defeat this person. Emperor Venom's expression was dark and even twisted. He hated Lin Feng to the bone. Now that he saw that Lin Feng was alone, he naturally wanted to take revenge. However, Emperor Wasteland shook his head and said with a solemn expression, "There's no need. Even a lion must use its full strength when hunting a rabbit. We're not here this time to take revenge, but to breach the Blue Domain Warzone. In that case, regardless of whether he's alone or with 10 people, no matter what scheming methods he has, they're futile before absolute power. Therefore, all emperors, attack together." At this moment, a terrifying aura quickly erupted from Emperor Wasteland's body. An unimaginably massive celestial devil's true form stretched across the Kiliacosm domain corridor. Boom, boom, boom. It was not just Emperor Wasteland. There were also Emperor Bloodbath, Emperor Venom, and so on. A total of 7 celestial devil emperors all manifested their celestial devil's true form. They had no intention of holding back at all. They all unleashed the power of their celestial devil's true form, determined to kill Lin Feng in one fell swoop. Even though Lin Feng might have secrets, Emperor Wasteland would not underestimate anyone. He would do his best to kill Lin Feng once and for all. Ha ha ha! Dark Domain Supremacy. Today is the day you die. The voice of Emperor Venom's massive celestial devil's true form echoed majestically, shaking the entire Kiliacosm domain corridor. Lin Feng glanced at the 7 emperors opposite him. All of them had tens of thousands of layers of celestial devil's true form. Every celestial devil could not be underestimated. In the past, Lin Feng would really be in danger. It would have been difficult for him to even escape, and he might even have activated the spacetime imprint. But now Lin Feng shook his head. There was a strange glint in his eyes. 7 emperors? Come on! Lin Feng did not let his guard down. Worlds suddenly appeared above his head. The massive power of the Kiliacosm domain swept through the entire Kiliacosm corridor majestically. It was like an invisible storm. Kill! The moment Lin Feng unleashed his internal Kiliacosm domain, Emperor Wasteland attacked. He seized the opportunity and treated Lin Feng entirely as an entity on the same level. He did not hold back at all. His terrifying 200,000-layer celestial devil's true form threw a punch at Lin Feng. The power of this punch was too great. Even Lin Feng was enduring immense pressure. In fact, just the force of the punch could affect the sandstorm domain, vaguely shaking it. A terrifying entity at the level of Emperor Wasteland could even tear apart a Kiliacosm domain with a breath, let alone a full power strike. Even the slightest shockwave would cause damage to the Kiliacosm domain. Moreover, it was not just Emperor Wasteland who attacked. The 6 emperors, including Emperor Bloodbath and Emperor Venom, also attacked at the same time. The celestial devil's true form of Emperor Bloodbath seemed to emit an infinite bloody aura. It was overwhelming, enough to drown the entire Kiliacosm domain. Emperor Venom's strength was not bad either. Although he had been severely injured, he still had tens of thousands of layers of celestial devil's true form. Lin Feng had never felt so much pressure as he did at this moment. There were 7 celestial devil emperors, and even a terrifying celestial devil emperor with a 200,000-layer celestial devil's true form. Even though Lin Feng had 210,000 worlds, he still felt immense pressure. However, that was all. Lin Feng did not pay any attention to it. His goal was actually to kill these 7 emperors. In Lin Feng's eyes, these 7 emperors were trapped for good. He wanted to kill them all. Boom! In the next moment, Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain finally erupted completely. He did not conceal himself at all anymore. The mighty aura of worlds instantly swept over and enveloped the 7 emperors. This is impossible. How can he have such a powerful aura? It's simply suffocating. How many worlds are there? Heavens, it's not 70,000. It's definitely not 70,000. There might even be more than 100,000 worlds. Not 100,000, but more than 200,000 worlds. At this moment, no one had expected Lin Feng to suddenly unleash such a terrifying power. That's more than 200,000 worlds. What kind of concept was this? Among the 9 elders of the indefinite sect, only the top 3 could possess more than 200,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. For example, Emperor Wasteland also had 200,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. But how long did it take for him? It had taken more than 1 billion years. But what was the case for Lin Feng? Emperor Venmo definitely had not forgotten that back then, Lin Feng only had 70,000 worlds. That was genuine and absolutely could not be wrong. Moreover, it was impossible for Lin Feng to have concealed his strength back then. Under such circumstances, if he could have forced Emperor Venom to stay, how could he have missed it? That meant that back then, Lin Feng really only had 70,000 worlds. Now, only 100 years had passed, but Lin Feng had already acquired more than 200,000 worlds. Such a speed was simply incredible. Gaining 130,000 worlds in a century was simply too insane and unbelievable. Normally, Emperor Venom, Emperor Wasteland, and the others would not believe it. Even a 2-star emperor would take an incredibly long time to gradually accumulate power, and eventually become a 2-star celestial devil emperor. How could he have improved so much in just 100 years? There's a secret. This man has a huge secret. At this moment, Emperor Wasteland no longer doubted it. He was certain that Lin Feng had a huge secret. Perhaps the extent of this secret far exceeded his imagination. However, could they take down Lin Feng with 200,000 worlds? Emperor Wasteland was very shrewd, and even nefarious and cunning. He was a terrifying emperor with a 200,000-layer celestial devil's true form. When he sensed that Lin Feng had 200,000 worlds, he actually reacted immediately. He fled. He fled backward in a frenzy. The dignified Emperor Wasteland, with 6 other emperors beside him, actually fled immediately. Even Emperor Bloodbath and Emperor Venom beside him were very surprised. Ha! Lin Feng did not expect Emperor Wasteland to be so decisive either. He only had 200,000 worlds, not 2 million. If the 7 emperors joined forces, they could still pose a fatal threat to him. At least on the surface, that was the case. But why did Emperor Wasteland escape? Emperor Wasteland's escape disrupted Lin Feng's plan. Lin Feng's main target was Emperor Wasteland. After all, he had 200,000 layers of Celestial Devil's true form. Could only be chanced upon by luck. How could Lin Feng let him escape? Stop time. Immediately, an invisible fluctuation instantly descended and enveloped the 7 emperors in the blink of an eye. Even Emperor Wasteland was no exception. The 7 emperors were stilled by the rules of time simultaneously. They maintained all kinds of postures, as if they were fixed in the Kiliacosm domain corridor. It was a very strange sight. Lin Feng's face was slightly pale. Stopping the 7 emperors at once was too much of a burden on him. However, there were 210,000 worlds in his body, and Lin Feng's endurance had clearly increased by a lot. Lin Feng could completely restrict even the 7 emperors. Annihilate. The moment Lin Feng used the rules of time, he had already taken action. His internal world suddenly enveloped the 7 emperors, sweeping them all into his internal Kiliacosm domain. Bang, bang, bang. The 210,000 worlds in the internal Kiliacosm domain contained a daunting power. How terrifying was the power contained! Moreover, these 7 emperors did not even have the chance to resist on their own. They were all completely stilled, and could only rely on their Celestial Devil's true form to resist it head-on. Emperor Wasteland might be able to hold out for a while, but the other emperors could not. Immediately 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 Celestial Devil emperors were the weakest. They could not withstand the suppression of the power of Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain at all. They collapsed instantly, turning into pure world origin that was devoured by the chaotic lotus. At the same time, Emperor Venom only held out for a few more moments before being pulverized by the power of the Kiliacosm domain. In an instant, only Emperor Bloodbath and Emperor Wasteland remained among the 7 emperors. These 2 emperors were also the strongest and the ones who could hold out the longest. Emperor Bloodbath was slightly stronger than Emperor Venom at his peak back then. He had about 110,000 layers of Celestial Devil's true form. If not for Lin Feng with Emperor Bloodbath's strength, he could handle any warzone with ease, and could even oversee a warzone alone. However, in front of Lin Feng, Emperor Bloodbath could be considered to be in deep trouble. It was as if he was an auxiliary. No matter how strong he was, he could not be stronger than Emperor Wasteland. Facing the crushing force of Lin Feng's 210,000 worlds, he naturally did not hold out for long. His 110,000 layers of Celestial Devil's true form also collapsed one after another, turning into pure world origin. In the end, only Emperor Wasteland was left. A 200,000-layer Celestial Devil's true form was indeed extraordinary. However, so what? Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain was stronger than the Emperor Wasteland's to begin with. Hence, although the burden on his internal Kiliacosm domain was heavy after time was stopped, it was not like when he dealt with Emperor Venom previously, when it could collapse in half a breath. Lin Feng could still hold out for a long time. Taking advantage of this period of time, Lin Feng gathered the power of all the Kiliacosm domains and struck Emperor Wasteland hard. Boom! With the first strike, Emperor Wasteland had lost tens of thousands of times of his Celestial Devil's true form. After all, how terrifying was a full power strike from Lin Feng's 210,000 worlds. Even without stopping time in a head-on attack, Lin Feng's 210,000 worlds were not at a disadvantage at all. Of course, had they fought head-on, it would be impossible for Lin Feng to weaken his opponent's true form by tens of thousands of layers in an instant. Boom! This was the second strike. Tens of thousands of layers of Celestial Devil's true form were lost again. The third strike, fourth strike, fifth strike. There was not much left of Emperor Wasteland's Celestial Devil's true form. He only had a few hundred layers of Celestial Devil's true form left, and had lost almost 90% of it. However, Emperor Wasteland continued remaining still, and still did not wake up. The rules of time are really too powerful. Even Lin Feng could not help but exclaim. To those Celestial Devils or controllers who were weaker than him, the advantage of the rules of time was just too great. Lin Feng could completely still the other party, and make the enemy a live target. Even a dignified celestial devil emperor with 200,000 layers of celestial devil's true form like Emperor Wasteland had nowhere to run and was beaten to death. He would be crudely beaten to the death. Every layer of celestial devil's true form was forcefully pulverized. Finally, Lin Feng pointed with a finger. Thud. The last few hundred layers of Emperor Wasteland's celestial devil's true form were instantly annihilated and reduced to dust. His accumulation over billions of years was instantly gone. Perhaps Emperor Wasteland was not dead yet, and could still be revived in the celestial devil pool, but he would never return to his peak again. He was just a servant celestial devil now. At this moment, in the war fortress outside the Kiliacosm domain corridor, Supremacy Pagoda and the other 6 supremacies all had nervous expressions as they stared intently at Lin Feng. Many people wore expressions of nervousness, worry, and traces of anticipation. Seeing Lin Feng devour the 7 emperors into his internal Kiliacosm domains at once, all the supremacies could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat. How can the dark domain supremacy be so reckless? He actually swept Emperor Wasteland and the others into his internal Kiliacosm domain. Once they wreak destruction in his internal Kiliacosm domain, it can even destroy his internal Kiliacosm domain instantly. He's too careless. That's Emperor Wasteland. It's one thing if it's just Emperor Wasteland, but the key is that there's still Emperor Bloodbath, Emperor Venom, and the others. If he's not careful, he might even fall. Could the dark domain supremacy be absolutely confident? The many supremacies did not have much confidence. They knew that Lin Feng had 210,000 worlds. Although it was very awe-inspiring, having 210,000 worlds actually only made him on par with Emperor Wasteland. If Emperor Wasteland was alone, Lin Feng might be able to annihilate Emperor Wasteland's celestial devil's true form by risking everything to sweep him into the internal Kiliacosm domain. Lin Feng would also have to pay a certain painful price himself. However, if Emperor Bloodbath, Emperor Venom, and the others were included as well, there were a total of 7 emperors. What did this mean? Even the war fortress might not be able to hold out for long with such a lineup, let alone Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain. The internal Kiliacosm domain of a 1-star supremacy was both their strongest and weakest point. No one would take the risk to sweep powerful enemies into their internal Kiliacosm domain unless absolutely necessary. However, Lin Feng had done so. It seemed like he actually had absolute confidence. Could it be that miraculous ability of the dark domain supremacy? Supremacy Pagoda's heart skipped a beat. He recalled that when Lin Feng dealt with Emperor Venom back then, he could completely still Emperor Venom for half a breath. That miraculous ability left a deep impression on Supremacy Pagoda, and he could not forget it until now. If Lin Feng's miraculous abilities could be stronger, and could even restrain Emperor Wasteland, these 7 emperors would indeed be nothing. At this thought, even Supremacy Pagoda himself was shocked. That ability was too strange and frightening. Being able to trap a celestial devil emperor with 100,000 layers of celestial devil's true form was already rather terrifying, let alone trapping 7 emperors, including a celestial devil emperor with 200,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. Didn't that mean that Lin Feng was already invincible among entities at the same level? No matter how many of them there were, they were just served to him on a platter. They could not do anything to Lin Feng at all. Moreover, Supremacy Pagoda vaguely sensed that Lin Feng's stilling ability seemed to be some kind of Kiliacosm domain rules. The Kiliacosm domain rules would gradually increase in power as the Supremacy's internal Kiliacosm domain grew. If Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain continued to grow in the future, how terrifying would those miraculous, stilling rules be? Supremacy Pagoda no longer dared to imagine it. Swoosh! Just as everyone was feeling uncertain, Lin Feng, who had remained motionless with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. Lin Feng opened his eyes. Supremacy Pagoda and the other 6 supremacies all looked at Lin Feng nervously. Battles that occurred in the internal Kiliacosm domain of a supremacy were not visible to others at all. However, Lin Feng had not fallen. Perhaps this was good news. It's settled. Lin Feng looked at the war fortress and transmitted his voice over. Swoosh! 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 Supremacy Pagoda and the other 6 supremacies flew over immediately. They still appeared as if they could not quite believe it. Is everything really settled? It's settled. All 7 emperors were killed without exception. Hiss! Lin Feng's words made even Supremacy Pagoda and the other 6 supremacies gasp. Those were 7 emperors, including elders of the indefinite sect like Emperor Wasteland and Emperor Bloodbath. Including Emperor Venom, Lin Feng had slain 3 elders of the indefinite sect alone this time. This could be considered an unprecedented feat ever since the indefinite sect was established. It had never suffered such a huge loss. In fact, the indefinite sect even had the upper hand in their confrontation in the central war zone. Who would have thought that the indefinite sect would suffer heavy losses in a remote war zone like the Blue Domain war zone? Everyone knew what this battle meant. As long as they breached the iridescent domain after this, everything else would go smoothly. The indefinite sect's chiliocosm domains were everywhere and were free for their taking. How great was this benefit? Supremacy Pagoda, let's follow our previous plan and don't delay any longer. We'll head to the iridescent domain immediately and breach the celestial devil world of iridescent domain. When the time comes, we'll each rely on our own abilities, Lin Feng said calmly. His tone seemed to be negotiating, but in reality, it was resolute and unquestionable. Once the iridescent domain was breached, there would be no need for distribution at all. This was because there were a great amount of chiliocosm domains. If one was bold enough, they could even go directly to the indefinite sect's headquarters. For a moment, all the supremacies were incomparably excited. That's right. Let's go to the iridescent domain. There's not many powerful forces ahead now. The various war zones of the indefinite sect can't spare any manpower either. What can one iridescent domain do? The iridescent domain alone can't stop us. Every supremacy was overwhelmed with emotions. The prospects were just too tempting. They knew that slaying Emperor Wasteland and the others was not the key. The key was that after slaying Emperor Wasteland and the others, the indefinite sect would no longer have any reinforcements. The iridescent domain was practically a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Once they breached the iridescent domain, no power would be able to stop them. Go! Lin Feng took the lead and flew towards the iridescent domain immediately. The iridescent domain was actually not far from the sandstorm domain. It could be considered the second and last line of defense of the sandstorm domain, and the defense line was set up just in case of emergencies. After all, if someone could break through the defense of the sandstorm domain head-on and resist the celestial devil experts of the reinforcements, what could the iridescent domain do? As he flew, Lin Feng's internal chiliocosm domain was quietly changing. He had slain 7 celestial devil emperors in one go. Every celestial devil emperor had tens of thousands of layers of celestial devil's true form. Even if a little of it was consumed, the amount of world origin converted was simply terrifying. With so much world origin, Lin Feng's chaotic lotus also recovered its vitality and began to grow more worlds. Back then, Lin Feng had plundered 250,000 boundary stones, including some high-quality boundary stones. According to the previous conversion method, it could grow at least 250,000 or even 300,000 worlds. However, growing worlds actually consumed world origin. Although the consumption was relatively small, with so many boundary stones and so many worlds, the amount of world origin consumed was huge. Now that Lin Feng had obtained a large amount of world origin, and had an endless supply of world origin, the chaotic lotus could grow worlds in a frenzy without any reservations. Moreover, Lin Feng directly accelerated time, allowing the worlds that were grown to expand rapidly, turning into truly complete worlds. It would provide combat power in time and enhance Lin Feng's strength. Lin Feng already had a vague feeling that this time, the matter was really serious. The indefinite sect definitely would not just watch as they charged straight in from the Blue Domain war zone. Otherwise, the indefinite sect would definitely lose. Moreover, Lin Feng had a vague premonition. He did not know what danger he would encounter next time, but he knew that he had to increase his strength now. Taking this opportunity to increase his strength in a frenzy was the most important thing. Hence, under accelerated time, the number of worlds in Lin Feng's internal chiliocosm domain increased in a frenzy. Moreover, in an extremely short period of time, The worlds emerged like mushrooms after a rain, and quickly took shape under accelerated time. From 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, with the continuous supply of world origin, Lin Feng's internal worlds were also increasing wildly. With time acceleration on top, right now, his internal kiliocosm domain was like boiling water and burning hot iron, improving wildly at every moment. This speed of improvement made Lin Feng feel as if he was about to lose control. However, he did not stop to slowly digest it. He would have time to slowly digest it in the future, but now was definitely not the time. This was a critical moment. He had to seize more benefits before the indefinite sect could react. This war was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Lin Feng would not miss it. Swoosh. Soon, everyone arrived at the Sandstorm domain. Moreover, the celestial devil world in the Sandstorm domain was also huge. Lin Feng could even sense a few one-star celestial devil emperors. However, that was all. There were no heavyweights. In Lin Feng's eyes, they were not worth mentioning at all. At this moment, the celestial devils in the celestial devil world of the iridescent domain seemed to have yet to react. Seeing that Lin Feng and the others had already arrived at the iridescent domain, they roared wildly, but it was already useless. Emperor Ink Cloud is here as well. Supremacy Yellow Sky suddenly saw a familiar figure. It was Emperor Ink Cloud who had escaped from the Ink Cloud domain back then. He was actually in the iridescent domain. Dark Domain Supremacy, what should we do now? Supremacy Pagoda asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng's strength was already so powerful that it seemed to be on another level. Although the Blue Domain War Zone was still presided over by Supremacy Pagoda, he had to show his respect for Lin Feng. The strong were revered. This was not just the case for celestial devils but also for controllers. Lin Feng's previous series of feats had already awed all the supremacies. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, then he said in a low voice, I need the celestial devils to be converted into world origin, a large amount of world origin. If no one has any objections, I'll devour the celestial devil world in the iridescent domain. However, you can harvest the kiliocosm domains after the iridescent domain at will. I only want the boundary stones. Facing this massive celestial devil world, Lin Feng did not hold back. He directly expressed that he wanted to take it all for himself. Right now, he did need a large amount of world origin. Otherwise, no matter how many boundary stones he got, it would be useless. Without the support of world origin, he would not be able to grow worlds at all. Ha ha ha! It's just a celestial devil world. We didn't help much previously. We all relied on the Dark Domain Supremacy to kill Emperor Wasteland and the other Celestial Devil Emperors. This Celestial Devil world should belong to the Dark Domain Supremacy. That's right. None of us have any objections. The Dark Domain Supremacy deserves the credit for this battle. The Celestial Devil world is your reward. When the other 6 supremacies heard that Lin Feng wanted to take the Celestial Devil world for himself, practically none of them objected at all. All of them agreed. It was just a celestial devil world. After the iridescent domain, there were still many kiliocosm domains. How could they become enemies with Lin Feng over a mere celestial devil world? Hence, he was also happy to do Lin Feng a favor. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Devour! Lin Feng did not stand on ceremony anymore. He looked at the enormous celestial devil world in front of him and manifested his internal kiliocosm domain. Like a huge mouth, it instantly devoured the celestial devil world. Look, that's a controller. How did he break through to our place? This is bad. That's the internal kiliocosm domain of the controller. It's a 1-star supremacy. He wants to devour our celestial devil world. Emperors, resist. At this moment, the celestial devil world was in complete chaos. As soon as Lin Feng's kiliocosm domain descended, a few other 1-star celestial devil emperors in the celestial devil world all manifested their celestial devil's true forms, trying to resist Lin Feng's kiliocosm domain. Unfortunately, they were too weak to be of any effect. It was completely useless. Once Lin Feng's kiliocosm domain came into contact with them, they fell apart like melting ice. The true forms of these celestial devils were instantly reduced to dust. The difference was just too great. Emperor Inkcloud could only watch helplessly as Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain landed. He had already recognized that the owner of this Kiliacosm domain in front of him was the Dark Domain Supremacy, who had once seized his Inkcloud domain. Dark Domain Supremacy. Once the iridescent domain is breached, the sect master won't let you off. Emperor Inkcloud could only roar hysterically. Then, he let out an agonized scream as he was enveloped by Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain. Boom! Lin Feng's Kiliacosm domain descended, and everything was settled. Once the celestial devil world was swept into his internal Kiliacosm domain, its outcome was a given. It must have already been reduced to dust and converted into pure world origin. I'll guard this place. I hope everyone will keep your promise and send the boundary stones regularly. Lin Feng glanced at the Pagoda Supremacy and the other Supremacies, and said in a low voice, "Haha, of course. Dark Domain Supremacy, rest assured. We will come annually, and will definitely offer all the boundary stones. Dark Domain Supremacy, I will supervise them." Many Supremacies expressed that they would definitely give him the boundary stones. Apart from rewarding their subordinates, the boundary stones were useless to them, unless the boundary stones were of especially high quality, such as 1-star boundary stones or above. However, how could such boundary stones be so easy to encounter? Even if there were some, they would have long been plundered by the celestial devils. To celestial devils, 1-star boundary stones could also be exchanged for a large amount of world origin with certain controllers. Seeing that Lin Feng had devoured the celestial devil world and was sitting cross-legged on the spot, Supremacy Pagoda and the others bade farewell to Lin Feng and headed to other Kiliacosm domains. If they went forward from the iridescent domain, it would be a smooth path ahead. They could charge straight in. Without any presiding celestial devil emperor, wouldn't they be able to take whatever they wanted? However, Lin Feng still sent a voice transmission to Supremacy Yellow Sky and Supremacy Xuanji. The indefinite sect won't let the matter rest so easily. It's better not to go in too deep. Supremacy Yellow Sky and Supremacy Xuanji's hearts clenched. They knew that Lin Feng was saying this for their own good, so they both nodded. Although benefits were tempting, they had to stay alive to enjoy them. At such a moment, it was even more important not to get carried away. As Supremacy Yellow Sky, Supremacy Pagoda, and the others left, the surroundings fell silent. However, Lin Feng's internal Kiliacosm domain was not quiet at all. Instead, it became more and more heated. No one knew what kind of earth-shattering changes were occurring in his internal Kiliacosm domain at this moment. As he devoured this celestial devil world and obtained a large amount of world origin, with accelerated time on top, more and more worlds grew out of his internal Kiliacosm domains. They went from 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, 90,000, to 100,000. In a short period of time, the worlds in his internal Kiliacosm domain had increased by 100,000, reaching 310,000 worlds. And this was only the beginning. It was far from over. His internal Kiliacosm domain was still boiling violently. Soon, Lin Feng muttered softly. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that he had to seize. However, at the same time, he also knew that perhaps danger was imminent. He had to take advantage of this period of time to increase his strength as much as he could. There was a loud commotion. The Indefinite City was the Indefinite Sect headquarters. The Indefinite City was not a single Kiliacosm domain, or even within any Kiliacosm. It floated in the Kiliacosm domain corridor, surrounded by several Kiliacosm domains. This Indefinite City was personally created by the Indefinite Sect Master. Its defense was so formidable, it was rumored that even 1-star supremacies or emperors could not breach this celestial devil world at all. However, at this moment, the celestial devil pool in the celestial devil world became lively all of a sudden. One by one, celestial devils were revived in the celestial devil pool. In particular, the few emperors in the lead were 1-star emperors, and there were even elders of the indefinite cult. Elder Wasteland, Elder Bloodbath, Elder Venom, why are you? The celestial devil guarding the celestial devil pool was already incoherent. Heavens, these were dignified one-star emperors, and there was more than one of them. There were a total of 7 emperors, and even 3 elders of the indefinite sect. Such a lineup was more than enough to guard a war zone. How could their celestial devils' true forms be killed, such that they had no choice but to revive in the celestial devil's pool? Not long after, there was another commotion in the celestial devil pool. This time, more celestial devils were revived. They were practically everywhere, and practically filled the entire celestial devil pool. The guard could already tell that these celestial devils were all celestial devils from the iridescent domain. There were even a few celestial devil emperors. Why were they all resurrected in the celestial devil pool at once? Could the iridescent domain have been completely wiped out at once? The celestial devil guard also sensed that something was amiss. He also knew that iridescent domain was the last line of defense. Once it collapsed, the controllers would meet no resistance afterward, and could wreak havoc at will. Under such circumstances, allowing those controllers to wreak havoc at will was simply a disaster, and might even affect the direction of the entire war. Including the one-star emperors in the iridescent domain, there were about 12 one-star celestial devil emperors whose celestial devils' true forms had been destroyed. This was simply an unprecedented heavy blow to the indefinite sect. Seeing this scene, Emperor Wasteland's heart sank. He knew that the iridescent domain must have been breached, and it must be the work of that dark domain supremacy. We underestimated that dark domain supremacy too much. His Kiliacosm domain rules are about time. Emperor Wasteland could not help but let out a long sigh. Even now, he still had lingering fears. He did not find it unfair, and accepted his defeat. Those were rules of time. Even in the vast medium Kiliacosm, where experts were everywhere, and there were even great entities like the Kiliacosm sovereigns, no one had ever mastered the rules of time. But now they had appeared on a mere one-star supremacy. Although Emperor Wasteland could not be certain, he had experienced them personally. According to his knowledge, it was most likely close to the mark and not far off. It was very likely that they were really the rules of time. He had previously guessed that Lin Feng might have a shocking secret, but he did not expect it to be the rules of time. The mysterious rules of time were simply too shocking in the myriad worlds. He attributed the entire cause behind the destruction of his celestial devil's true form to Lin Feng having the rules of time. Moreover, even if Lin Feng had not comprehended the rules of time, Emperor Wasteland must still claim that Lin Feng had the rules of time, because this might be his only chance to make a comeback. Otherwise, the sect master would not care about a mere servant celestial devil whose celestial devil's true form had already been killed. Only when he had value would the sect master give him any attention, and would he have a chance to ascend to power again. "I'll go to see the sect master." Emperor Wasteland immediately made up his mind. Even Emperor Bloodbath might not know about the existence of the rules of time. Only he had heard of it on some occasions. Hence, this was a secret that he would not tell anyone. Although the indefinite sect master was fighting with the 2-star supremacy of the opulent lodge, Emperor Wasteland knew that an avatar left behind by the indefinite sect master was presiding over the indefinite city. Hence, Emperor Wasteland rushed towards the celestial devil palace of the indefinite sect master as quickly as possible. What? The mystery of time. Sect master, it's absolutely true. It must be the rules of time. Emperor Wasteland spoke confidently, but at the same time he was very cautious. He was confident because he had to appear confident, especially in front of this terrifying entity in front of him, the sect master of the indefinite sect, a 2-star celestial devil emperor. Only by appearing confident could he make up for his mistakes. At the very least, he would not have to start over as a servant celestial devil. That way he would have a chance of recovery. As for being careful, it was naturally out of fear for the indefinable sect master. The indefinable sect master was temperamental. Even Emperor Wasteland at his peak did not dare to anger the indefinable sect master lightly, let alone now. The eyes of the indefinite sect master seemed to contain infinite profundity. Even Emperor Wasteland did not dare to look at them. He could only lower his head and listen to the indefinable sect master's decision. The mystery of time. That's the mystery of time. Even a Kiliacosm sovereign can't master the mystery of time. It actually appeared on a mere 1-star supremacy. Looks like he received an extraordinary opportunity. Forget it. I'll personally take action and capture that controller called Lin Feng. Then, everything will be clear. The indefinite sect master stood up. The entire celestial devil palace seemed to be shaking, and even the entire celestial devil world was shaking. The indefinite city was a celestial devil world, and its defense was ridiculously powerful. Even so, the indefinite sect master was still cautious. He specially left an avatar to guard the indefinite city, just in case. Although it was only an avatar, this avatar had a total of 20 million layers of celestial devil's true form. This was only because the indefinite sect master did not dare to allocate too much power to his avatar. Otherwise, his true body would not be able to deal with the 2-star supremacy of the opulent lodge. However, a celestial devil's true form of 20 million layers was enough to sweep through everything. Emperor Wasteland, if that controller has really mastered the mystery of time, I will allow you to restore your true form and return to your peak state. Thank you for your gift, Sect Master. Emperor Wasteland was overjoyed. Hadn't he specially come to visit the indefinite sect leader, and even offered such a huge secret for the sake of returning to his peak state? Perhaps to others, it might be very difficult, or even almost impossible, to help Emperor Wasteland return to his peak and condense another 200,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. However, to the great and powerful indefinite sect master, who had more than 100 million layers of celestial devil's true form, it was not worth mentioning at all. He could easily allow Emperor Wasteland to return to his peak. All right, is that Lin Feng in the iridescent domain? That's right, he should be in the iridescent domain. After all, the iridescent domain has just been breached. The indefinite sect master did not say anything else. Instead, he pondered for a moment and muttered in a low voice, "It's a little difficult for me. Moreover, the old fogey from the opulent lodge has been keeping an eye on this avatar of mine. If I make any movement, he will definitely sense it immediately and stop me." The indefinite sect master knew very well that while he had an avatar, the opulent lodge naturally had a way to deal with it. If there's no movement from him while he presided over the indefinite city, that was one thing. Yes, I have it. Although it takes some time and there's a price, that old fogey from the opulent lodge can finally stop pestering me. The mystery of time. The mystery of time that even Kiliakosm sovereigns can't master. I must obtain it. Boundary stones. So many boundary stones. Lin Feng really did not expect that such a large number of boundary stones would be delivered to him in just a year. There were simply too many, piling up like a mountain. He roughly estimated that there were more than 200,000 boundary stones. Among them were some high-quality boundary stones, and this was only the first year. He knew that as time passed, more and more boundary stones would definitely be found. This was really a huge gain. After all, they would meet no resistance after the iridescent domain. It was completely the hinterland of the indefinite sect. There were more than 10 Kiliakosm domains. In fact, if one was a little bolder and went further in, there would be dozens of Kiliakosm domains. So many Kiliakosm domains would naturally provide a great number of boundary stones. Lin Feng was not in a hurry to devour them. The boundary stones he had devoured previously had now been nurtured by a large amount of world origin, and had already completely grown into worlds. A total of 300,000 worlds were grown from 250,000 boundary stones. Now, the number of worlds in Lin Feng's internal Kiliakosm domain had successfully reached 370,000. However, this was not enough, still not enough. Lin Feng vaguely felt a sense of urgency. This was just too abnormal. The iridescent domain had been breached, and there was no longer any defense line afterward. The controllers were free to do whatever they wanted, and would be met with no resistance. Not just 1-star supremacies of the Blue Domain Warzone, many controllers under the command of the various 1-star supremacies also entered these Kiliakosm domains, killing celestial devils in a frenzy and snatching all kinds of resources. After so long, there was actually no movement from the indefinite sect. This was too bizarre. Even if the indefinite sect really could not spare any manpower, it was impossible for them to not take any action at all. It was really a little abnormal. Hence, Lin Feng had a vague sense of worry. This was the calm before the storm. The calmer the indefinite sect appeared now, the more intense the reaction would definitely be, and the greater the intensity of retaliation. Hence, Lin Feng had to seize the time to quickly increase his strength. He had to take this opportunity to plunder hard. Otherwise, he might not get such a good opportunity in the future. Lin Feng knew very well that as long as the sect master of the indefinite sect was alive, the indefinite sect would not lose. Even if they lost, they would not be defeated fully. This was very likely the only opportunity they could plunder things at will. As time passed, the various controllers plundered a large amount of boundary stones for Lin Feng in the many kiliocosm domains. Now, even ordinary controllers seemed to know that Lin Feng needed a large amount of boundary stones. Hence, some controller supremacies also took the initiative to express their goodwill to Lin Feng. They plundered a large amount of boundary stones, which were all collected in front of Lin Feng. In just 10 years, the number of boundary stones in front of Lin Feng had actually reached 1 million. These were 1 million boundary stones. However, after Lin Feng obtained 1 million boundary stones, the speed at which the boundary stones were collected slowed down rapidly. The controllers must have already plundered dozens of kiliocosm domains. Even if there were still some left, there would not be too many. Looking at the 1 million boundary stones in front of him, Lin Feng's gaze was incomparably excited. He had devoured a large number of celestial devils, and had even devoured the celestial devil world for himself. Now he had abundant world origin. Even so, Lin Feng did not know if he could support the worlds nurtured from 1 million boundary stones. Devour! The chaotic lotus seemed to transform into a huge mouth that swallowed all the boundary stones in one gulp. Boom! What did 1 million boundary stones mean? Up until now, Lin Feng only had 370,000 worlds, and that's just the combat power of 370,000 worlds. In terms of his actual number of worlds, there were not even 370,000. But now, there were an additional 1 million boundary stones at once. Once he devoured all these boundary stones, if the world origin was enough to support it, it could even grow millions of worlds. How terrifying was this? However, Lin Feng knew that this was his opportunity. He had to seize it. As the boundary stones were devoured one after another, Lin Feng truly entered a state of ascetic cultivation. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. This war had already gone on for 100 years. The major war zones had changed greatly. The opulent lodge had losses and victories, but without a doubt, the blue domain war zone attained the most glorious results. For a full 100 years, more and more controllers appeared in the blue domain war zone, all for the sake of taking a share of the loot. They entered the hinterland of the indefinite cult from the blue domain war zone. There was no movement from the indefinite sect the entire time. However, some powerful controllers had already vaguely sensed that something was amiss. The indefinite sect had not moved for so long because they were preparing for a terrifying operation. Hence, after some controllers were the first to make a fortune, they quietly left the blue domain war zone, with no intention of staying any longer. However, there were ultimately only a few who had this realization. Most people were assured to see that dark domain supremacy had been staying quietly in iridescent domain the entire time. Now, the reputation of the dark domain supremacy was at its peak. All kinds of news and deeds of the dark domain supremacy, Lin Feng, circulated in the 13 war zones. Many controller supremacies made an analysis, and came to the conclusion that Lin Feng was the reason why the blue domain war zone had performed so outstandingly and achieved such glorious results. It was Lin Feng who had forcefully advanced the defense line of the blue domain war zone by a large margin. He had even killed the 3 elders of the indefinite sect, including Emperor Wasteland. His might simply shook the various kiliocosm domains. Lin Feng's name as the dark domain supremacy was no longer obscure. He was illustrious now. However, Lin Feng turned a deaf ear to all the praises, envy, curiosity, and so on from the outside world. He always stayed in the iridescent domain. Previously, he had stayed in the corridor of the iridescent domain. Later, he entered the iridescent domain. No one dared to disturb Lin Feng lightly. Even the controllers who took the initiative to express their goodwill and offered some boundary stones looked at Lin Feng's figure with increasing reverence. It was just that although the aura on Lin Feng's body was not deliberately unleashed, it seemed to be strengthening at every moment, and had already reached an incredible level. Even one-star supremacies like Supremacy Yellow Sky and Supremacy Pagoda felt their hearts palpitate when facing Lin Feng. It was enough to show that the current Lin Feng had already ascended to an unknown level. 830,000 worlds. Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes. 100 years. This was a full 100 years. Lin Feng's internal worlds had increased by a total of 830,000. If the other controllers found out, there was no knowing how shocked they would be. This was simply unbelievable. In just 100 years, even if he kept devouring worlds, how could his worlds increase by 830,000? However, the truth was right in front of him. In addition to the original 370,000 worlds, Lin Feng's number of internal worlds had reached a shocking 1.2 million now. Having 1.2 million worlds was already above more than 90% of one-star supremacies. In the myriad worlds, as long as he did not encounter two-star supremacies or two-star celestial devil emperors, he could go anywhere. However, Lin Feng still felt that it was a pity. The world origin in his body had already been exhausted. Previously, he had devoured 1 million boundary stones. In the next few decades, he also obtained some boundary stones, about 500,000 of them. This was already the limit. All the major Kiliacosm domains had been plundered. Many controllers had already gone mad, as if they wanted to take this opportunity to make a killing. They had even ventured deep near the Indefinite City. That was the lair of the Indefinite Sect, the lair of all the celestial devils within the sphere of influence of the Indefinite Sect. It was also the celestial devil world personally established by the Indefinite Sect Master. Hence, after obtaining a large number of boundary stones, in addition to the previous 1 million boundary stones, Lin Feng had devoured a total of 1.5 million boundary stones. This was very terrifying. Assuming that there were 50 Kiliacosm domains, every Kiliacosm domain had provided Lin Feng with an average of 30,000 boundary stones in the past 100 years. Although this was a little too many, considering that celestial devils did not need low-quality boundary stones, it was not impossible. Once this plundering was over, it would be a wonder if they could collect 1,000 boundary stones in every Kiliacosm domain in the next 100 years. The production of boundary stones also required a long time. Lin Feng's plundering this time was equivalent to plundering all that was accumulated by these Kiliacosm domains over billions of years. Lin Feng did not know how many worlds could be created from 1.5 million boundary stones. In any case, it would not be less than 1.5 million. Now, only 830,000 worlds had been born. Lin Feng really did not have that much world origin to enrich his internal Kiliacosm domain. Hence, the chaotic lotus would not be able to grow so many worlds. That's about it. It's time to leave this place. Lin Feng pondered for a long time. In reality, he had planned about these 100 years. There was no longer much potential left in the blue domain war zone. There might be some Kiliacosm domains left near the Indefinite City, but the Indefinite City was under the nose of the Indefinite Sect Master. Lin Feng did not dare to take the risk. Who knew if the two-star supremacy of the Opulent Lodge could completely hold off the Indefinite Sect Master? What if he couldn't? Even if he had an instant, it would be enough to kill Lin Feng 10,000 times over. The difference between a two-star supremacy and a one-star supremacy was just too great. That was, unless Lin Feng could possess tens of millions of worlds. Then, perhaps by relying on the rules of time, Lin Feng could still contend with him for a while, and would not have to be so afraid of a two-star celestial devil emperor. However, he could not do it now. A two-star celestial devil emperor could crush most one-star supremacies with a finger. Lin Feng had already planned it out. There was no more potential in the blue domain war zone, so he would go to the central war zone. With Lin Feng's current strength, no matter which war zone he went to, he would actually be a heavyweight, and a powerful entity that could influence the advancement of the war. He believed that it would actually be very safe instead in the central war zone. At the very least, the Indefinite Sect Master definitely could not personally attack the central war zone, because the central war zone was also the focus of the two-star supremacy of the Opulent Lodge. With Lin Feng's current strength, as long as he did not encounter the indefinite sect master, he could almost rest easy. Hence, going to the central war zone was the most suitable choice. Swoosh! Supremacy Pagoda suddenly flew over. Dark Domain Supremacy, you've finally ended your cultivation after 100 years. You've probably gained a lot, right? Hasn't Supremacy Pagoda also gained a lot? Lin Feng said with a smile. Lin Feng, he could tell at a glance that Supremacy Pagoda probably had over 100,000 internal worlds. Originally, he only had more than 80,000. Could be said to be a huge gain. Haha! It's all thanks to the Dark Domain Supremacy. I came this time specially to invite the Dark Domain Supremacy to reinforce the other war zones. Our Blue Domain war zone has actually reached our limit by advancing here. We can't continue advancing forward. If we go any further, we'll reach the indefinite city. We can't destroy the indefinite city. Oh? That's what I was thinking too. Lin Feng did not expect Supremacy Pagoda to be so insightful as well. He knew that the defense line of the Blue Domain Warzone had already advanced to its limit up to this point. Haha! This is the conclusion I drew after much contemplation. I'm preparing to head to... As he spoke, Lin Feng suddenly felt his heart palpitate. This feeling came too quickly. Even Supremacy Pagoda sensed it. Supremacy Pagoda's eyes suddenly widened. He suddenly pointed at the outside of the iridescent domain. What is that? Lin Feng turned around and stared intently at the outside of the iridescent domain. A terrifying aura was unleashed all of a sudden. This terrifying aura that blotted out everything and almost enveloped the entire Kiliacosm domain and everyone. Even Lin Feng felt powerless to resist it. In particular, Lin Feng saw it clearly. That was a palm. A palm. Supremacy Pagoda's voice was trembling as he spoke. At his level as a one-star supremacy, he had a boundless Kiliacosm domain. There was no knowing how many one-star Celestial Devil Emperors he had met. Each of those one-star Celestial Devil Emperors had an incomparably massive Celestial Devil's true form. They looked down from above like gods of war. However, they practically paled in front of this palm at this moment and were completely insignificant. This palm enveloped the surrounding few Kiliacosm domains. They were like playthings that could be crushed at any moment in this palm. How terrifying was this palm? Lin Feng's pupils suddenly constricted. At this moment, he felt a strong sense of danger. Moreover, as this palm descended, he clearly sensed that the other party's target was actually him. The palm is coming for me? Not to kill me, but to capture me? Lin Feng understood. In a flash, he understood. The other party did not want to kill him, but just to capture him. He could even guess the other party's identity. It was impossible for any one-star Celestial Devil Emperor to have such terrifying power. Even tens of millions of layers of Celestial Devil's true form could not possess such power. If he had tens of millions of Celestial Devil's true form, Lin Feng might be able to resist it slightly with the help of the rules of time. But now, facing this palm, Lin Feng was like an ant, even smaller than an ant. No matter how many abilities he had, there was nothing he could do. The other party just wanted to capture him like an insect, and he probably could not even resist a finger from the other party. The Indefinite Sect Master. It must be the Indefinite Sect Master. Moreover, his true body has descended. Heavens! Isn't the true body of the Indefinite Sect Master fighting with the two-star supremacy of the Opulent Lodge? How could he come to the Blue Domain Warzone? Supremacy Pagoda had already cried out in alarm. At this moment, he wanted to escape, but facing this overwhelming palm, any thought of escaping was futile. Only a two-star Celestial Devil Emperor could stand at the top of the world and look down on everyone. Be it Celestial Devils or Controllers, at this level he could crush all of them. Lin Feng did not know why he had been targeted by the Indefinite Sect Master, who had even used his true body. However, he knew that he absolutely could not let the Indefinite Sect Master capture him. Immediately, Lin Feng used the rules of time. Stop time! How strong was the power of stopping time with 1.2 million worlds? It might resist even the power of tens of millions of layers of the Celestial Devil's true form. However, The indefinite sect master's palm landed down forcefully, and actually passed through the rules of time without meeting any resistance, as if they were just for show. Boom! Lin Feng's internal kiliocosm domain shook violently. This was only stopping time. If he had reversed time, Lin Feng's internal kiliocosm domain would probably have collapsed in an instant. However, even though he was just stopping time, Lin Feng's internal kiliocosm domain still shook violently. There was no knowing how many worlds had collapsed, and this had only taken an instant. This was the first time Lin Feng's rules of time were ignored while they were used. However, Lin Feng knew very well that the rules of time were not omnipotent. Now, he had seen it with his own eyes. It was not that he could not stop the indefinite sect master, but that the indefinite sect master was simply too powerful. Even the energy contained in a finger or a palm was unimaginably massive. Stopping time and shaking such a massive amount of energy took a price that even Lin Feng could not afford. The rules of time were not omnipotent. When strength reached a certain level, the rules of time were useless. Lin Feng finally understood what it meant to break all techniques with strength alone. Right now, the indefinite sect master could break all techniques with his strength alone. Space-time imprint. There was no hesitation. Actually, the moment he stopped time, Lin Feng had already begun to activate the space-time imprint. He was afraid that the other party would not even give him time to activate the space-time imprint. Facing a terrifying 2-star celestial devil emperor like the indefinite sect master, there was no such thing as being too cautious. Ha ha ha! I've got you! The indefinite sect master laughed heartily. In his opinion, Lin Feng was already completely trapped. Forget about a mere 1-star supremacy with only hundreds of thousands of worlds. Even someone with millions, or even tens of millions of worlds was insignificant under his palm. This was not his avatar, but his true body. The indefinite sect master had planned for so long. It took him a long time to manage to slightly fool the 2-star supremacy from the opulent lodge with his avatar, and by his true body a little time. Now, it seemed that his efforts were not in vain. Even if there was only a little time, it was enough for the indefinite sect master. However, when the indefinite sect master scanned with his mental power and sensed carefully, he realized that Lin Feng, who was still in the iridescent domain previously, had already disappeared silently. Not even a trace of his aura was left behind. How is this possible? I came in person. How can he still escape? The expression of the indefinite sect master changed drastically, but when he sensed carefully again, there was indeed no sign of Lin Feng. In fact, when he continued to expand the range of his search, there was no sign of Lin Feng in the dozens of kiliocosm domains. Lin Feng had mysteriously disappeared silently under the nose of the indefinite sect master. No! The indefinite sect master roared in a frenzy. How terrifying was the wrath of a 2-star celestial devil emperor. At once, dozens of kiliocosm domains shook, and countless controller supremacies trembled. This was a suppression formed by the huge disparity in strength. Simply unimaginable. Lin Feng has escaped. Ants like you will all die for it. The indefinite sect master instantly vented his anger on the controller supremacies of the Blue Domain Warzone. The controllers who had yet to retreat from the Blue Domain Warzone, such as Supremacy Pagoda, felt a chill run down their spines. They knew that everything was over. Die! The indefinite sect master opened his huge palm. This time it was even larger, enveloping the 10 kiliocosm domains. Then he clenched hard. Boom! The indefinite sect master did not seem to care about the outcome of the 10 kiliocosm domains at all. With a clench of his hand, the 10 kiliocosm domains were instantly reduced to ashes and forcefully crushed. The controllers who were still near the defense line of the Blue Domain Warzone were also implicated, and crushed by the indefinite sect master with a single palm. Indefinite sect master, you actually used an avatar with 20 million layers of Celestial Devil's true form to stop me, just to vent your anger on these juniors? Ha ha ha! An avatar with 20 million layers of Celestial Devil's true form was worth it. Suddenly, a majestic voice sounded. The expression of the indefinite sect master instantly changed. The other party actually caught up with him so quickly. In particular, from his words, It seemed like the avatar of the indefinite sect master was also finished. For a moment, the indefinite sect master became even angrier. He retracted his palm forcefully. There was no knowing where he flew to. He disappeared without a trace, leaving only an enormous dead region within the range of 10 kiliocosm domains.